Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would sit down and do a video for you guys and gals. Let me give you guys a forearm shot first. Forearms are on point. Speaking of which, let's talk about aesthetics. So people will often say things. You get guys who are like, well, I'm trying to get a more aesthetic physique. I want to look better. And I want people to know that I'm not talking about getting really jacked. I'm not talking about being really big. I'm talking about having an aesthetic physique. So they're like, what muscle should I focus on? They want to focus on biceps or whatever. And I'm not saying that's wrong or that's not going to help, because it absolutely can. Absolutely can. But I'm going to flip in one of my clients. One of my clients, I've had him a while, I think close to a year. Young guy with an aesthetic physique. It's only about 170 pounds or so. I think he's less than 170 right now. Got a good strength base guy, right? Guy can bench like 250, crank out pull-ups all day, decent squat, deadlift, right? What makes him look aesthetic? The shoulders, delts, and abs. So here's what I would say to the guys who are doing this. If your goal is to get aesthetic, you need to build as much delt as possible. And I can promise you guys, there is no way you're going to overdevelop your delts without taking anything. If you're a natural, completely natural, drug-free lifter, there is literally no way that you're going to be able to overdevelop your delts to the point where they're going to outshadow the rest of your physique in a way that makes you look bad. Okay, it's not going to happen. Absolutely will not happen. So, yeah, there's other things we can do. People can talk about, well, a V-taper makes you more aesthetic, but how do you get that? Well, having good sized lats and being lean, losing the body fat around the waistline, okay? And you can't change structure. You can't make your waist itself necessarily smaller. You can't make your pelvis smaller. You can't make a lot of those things smaller, okay? Now, I might say maybe you may not want to spend a lot of time overdeveloping your obliques, but your abs themselves, yeah, go ahead and knock it out. You can hammer your abs. In fact, having deeper abs will never hurt you. But realistically, it is about being lean that creates its effect. Building some muscle, everywhere. So I want to be perfectly clear, again, when I say this, I am not telling you not to develop other muscles. You should have some muscle everywhere. You should be training everything. Right? Should be training your calves. I would actually say for the lower body end, calves are probably going to do the most for you there. But that's not what people notice first always, though. So if we're talking the upper body, delts are going to make you look more aesthetic because it's always going to make you look wider up top, right? Your lats will help with that from the back. But from the front, delts are what's going to matter. That's what gives that look. Shoulders, 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 and getting leaner. Getting leaner, tightening up the waistline, okay? Now, again, I'm not telling you not to train your biceps and triceps or your pecs or any of that. I'm going to say, though, when I say delts, I really do mean that, because, I'll hear the same thing. I'll see a lot of guys, they're jumping in, well, I want to do a bunch of shrugs. Like, remember when rack pulls got really popular, above the knee rack pulls, all these guys, it'll build huge traps because, Alex was telling people that, which is nonsense, because again, when you saw him next to other people at the time, his traps weren't any bigger than people who didn't do them, right? Because all these guys were like, oh, he's got that big trap. But his traps were not any bigger than anyone else's at his, similar size. They just weren't. They weren't overdeveloped. Okay, so that was a silly, goofy trend that all the good coaches made fun of until it finally went away. But it was a big deal on YouTube for a while. It was trending for over a year, and I called it out as the nonsense that it was. In Alex's defense, he was an impressionable young guy at the time. Okay, I'm not going to go back and knock someone for something they did silly that many years ago. It's just not going to do it, because he's matured. He's changed. He's a different person. So again, water under the bridge. But the point there, all these guys were trying to build their traps without building their delts. I'm like, that's the worst thing you could do. If you want to look unaesthetic, if you're trying to look more monstrous, yeah, overdevelop the traps. But if you've got big traps and you don't have massive delts to offset it, you're not going to look aesthetic. Because aesthetic is certain classic lines. You're looking for V-taper, wide shoulders, right? There's a lot of things that go into that, certain proportions. And if you have massive traps and you don't have absolutely enormous delts, it's not going to be a good look in terms of that. So I would say to a lot of guys, like, focus on the delts, not the traps. So when we say shoulders, I specifically do mean delts. I mean your deltoids. Get them big, get them round, get them as capped as you can. And as you get leaner, it will become more prominent. Like a lot of times guys are like, well, my delts are okay. But then I'm like, well, drop 20 pounds of body fat. Then come back and tell me. Like if you've been training them hard, then you get leaner, then they're going to really stand out. And people don't realize how much more so. Enormous. So when I say to guys, train your delts, I do mean train all the angles. And I will go so far as to say that you can't neglect any head of the delt. So if your goal is to become as aesthetic as possible, I'm going to say put a lot of effort into your delts. You might even want to put a lot of effort into incline bench just to make sure your delts are getting work more, right? But yeah, you're going to want to do your big compound movements, various chest presses. You're going to want to do rows and everything because that helps with delts a lot. You may want to even do upright rows as a nice, big, heavy compound movement. But if you have limited gym time and you are trying to get as aesthetic as possible and you're not going to maximize development of every muscle in your body, you better maximize the delts. And I mean work all three heads. You're going to want to do lateral raises. You're going to want to do front raises. You're going to want to do rear delt work. Again, this is the one muscle that if you were chasing that look, it's the one muscle you better put real focus into if that is your goal, okay? You can come back and only do one type of curl. You could literally do chin-ups and incline curls or preacher curls or a barbell curl. You'll probably be okay if you got limited gym time. You'll still get good biceps, okay? You may only have to do one type of tricep exercise as long as you're doing lots of benching. That's fine. One type of calf, you can get away with all that. You can get away with that if you got limited gym time. But if you were trying to get that look, you really need to invest in isolating all three heads of the delt. You need to develop all of them as much as possible, get every single available muscle fiber. Because let me state again, well-developed delts are the key to that look, particularly if you're not going to be a real big guy. So if you're one of those guys who's trying to stay 170 ripped, 175 lean year round with abs, your delts need to be the muscle that you probably put the most actual focus into, of making sure that you are not leaving any muscle fiber unrecruited in it. You need to get all of them, everything. All right guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.